Okay, so now it's February 8th, I believe. And I know it's been a minute since the last time that I posted. I think it was sometime in January, like January 20 something, right? Feels like it's been over a month, to be honest, but I guess that's fine. I guess it's good because it hasn't been as much time as I had felt, I suppose, right? Regardless, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is doing something to change this year and hopefully make it a more meaningful year than the others. I hope you don't get to the end of 2024 and then think 2025 will be my year. And you know what, maybe it will be, but regardless, if you can make any sort of progress in anything this year, by all means, I'd say go for it. But for today, the only thing I wanted to talk about, it's like a few things, but mostly based around just the idea of letting go. And I think letting go applies to a lot of things: friendships, family, relationships, maybe dreams, different things. And letting go doesn't necessarily mean like just letting go of it entirely. Sometimes it means letting go of an idea of something and then attaining a different idea of that same vision, dream, relationship, friendship, family, whatever it may be, you know? And what I mean by that, again, is that I think it's just important to learn to let go, because sometimes I think we get so focused on a specific ideal and a specific perception of something that we kind of overwhelm ourselves, overwhelm others, and that we don't really allow things to flourish organically, you know? And one of the ways that I would apply it to is like relationships, you know? And another thing that you also have to realize is also, like I said, it applies to your actions and how you might feel overwhelmed, and you might overwhelm other people, because people walk in and out of your life, you know? God gives, God takes away. If you're not religious, well, life gives, life takes away. And so, sometimes, let's say you get in a relationship, I think one of the common things that everybody's going to feel in a relationship is the fear of losing that person, right? Whether it be losing them in terms of like losing them to illness or something like that, right? Or especially in the beginning stage, just losing them, just, where they lose interest, or they decide to go with somebody else, or they go off to school, or they decide to move away, or they decide to do something else, right? So you have to learn to let go and understand that even if they do leave and everything, anything that you can do for them, do it out of love, and never do it with the idea of, I don't want them to leave, right? Because if you do everything with the idea of not wanting them to leave, I'm pretty sure it's going to have the opposite effect of where it kind of pushes them away. It's like if you plan a date, if you're so overwhelmed and so focused on like it has to be absolutely perfect and this and that, right? But you're doing it out of fear of, let's say, abandonment, right? Then it's probably not going to be as good as it should be, again, because you're focusing on the wrong things. You're not focusing on, I want her or him or whoever it may be to feel happy, to feel a certain way. It's like, no, I just want to make it that it's this, and that, so that hopefully they won't leave me, so they can see how perfect I am, or how dedicated, or how, productive I am and everything. It's like, no, you should never do things for that reason. And especially, I think that if you're with the right person, I think that as long as you put in effort and you genuinely try to do things because you care for them, you love them or whatever, then I think they'll notice. I'm not saying just be lazy and don't do anything at all. That's complacency, and it'll probably get you where you don't want to be. You'll probably stay stagnant, and then that person will probably see, I don't really see growth with this relationship, because I feel like one of the important things is that we should try to help each other, right? A relationship should be a team building exercise, basically, where you guys build each other up, help each other, You still got to build yourself up, but, if you can help each other, hell, why not? And so make sure that, you have that sort of approach, and not, again, the approach of wanting to leave. Because, again, if they you don't want that approach of like, I'm doing this because I don't want them to leave, because, again, if they want to leave, they can. No matter what you do, remember, anybody can walk in and out of your life whenever they please. It's nice when they want to stay, right? But that's just the reality of it. So I think the sooner you realize that when you do things, you have to do it with that idea in mind, or you have to abandon that idea that they can leave, and you just do it because you genuinely want to, because, it's like, well, I don't know if I'll have a day of tomorrow, but at least right now, this is how I feel for you, this is what I want to do. Then I think it's better, because then even in the end, even if it doesn't work out, at least you know that you did your best and that you did it with love. Whereas if you do your quote-unquote best and you try so hard to do it a certain way and it doesn't work out, then later, you might think, hey, well, maybe I overwhelmed them, or maybe I mean, if you're truly trying to analyze a situation, otherwise I feel like you might just think like, well, I did this much, why did they leave? But at that point, you're kind of ignoring the actual problem, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of you you would be the problem in that regard. At least that's the way that I would see it. So, just be careful with that. Make sure that you do things out of love. Do things out of love, not because of, fear of abandonment or fear of disappointing somebody and everything. I know that might be a common thing sometimes with, kids and their parents, or, sons and daughters with their parents, whatever it may be. But, again, I think more than anything, if you had the opportunity to do it out of love, do it out of love, And so I think it also applies, though, to let go of other things. Like, certain ideas that we might have, certain dreams, certain preconceived notions of these things, right? Relationships, family, dreams, whatever, and everything else that I mentioned, among other things, right? Because sometimes I think, again, we get so focused on things have to be this way, or this has to be this way, this has to be that way, that we kind of fail to realize that, sometimes things change. Some things can change, and I'm not saying that you'd have to, like, if you have a dream, that you have to abandon it just because something changed or anything. It's like, no, but maybe you have to modify it to fit the new version of you, or this new stage in your life, same with your friendships, same with your relationships, same with your family, things like that, right? Because if you're so focused on some things have to be this way, right? And this can also apply to some of your habits, some of the things that you do, or some of the things that other people do, If you're so focused on it has to be this way, and you fail to realize how complex not only life but people around you are, then it might kind of lead you to live a sort of disappointing and maybe resentful life, because then you're going to feel like nothing ever goes your way. And I feel like you have to open yourself up to allow for some sort of change, or at least some sort of change, so that things can hopefully work out. I'm not saying lower your standards, not by all means, but what I'm saying is that sometimes a little growth is necessary, in order to be able to truly enjoy or grow in different aspects of your life, to attain, or accomplish certain goals and other things, you know what I'm saying? And another thing that would apply to that is, the habits of other people. Sometimes we think about how certain people do certain things, let's say maybe it's texting, conversation, the way that people eat, the way that people might open or not open doors for you, or the way that people might call you over the phone, or the way that people might treat you or joke around with you or something, Sometimes people do things certain ways because those are their ways that they do things, right? Just like how you do your ways. But then if you start judging people based on you, so oftentimes what happens is that when you judge people, you judge them either because they have something that you don't have, or because the way that they do things, that wouldn't be the way that you would do things, right? The problem is that, again, just because you would do it that way doesn't mean that they have to do it that way. And maybe it's not even because they don't know. Maybe your way is the better way, right? But maybe it's not because they wouldn't do it because they don't want to. Maybe they wouldn't do it, or they haven't done it because they just don't know any better. Maybe they just truly don't know. Like the saying goes, don't attribute to ignorance, don't attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance. Some people just genuinely don't know any better, or don't know about something, and how can you expect them to act out something that they've never learned before? You know what I'm saying? So then before you go judging, and before you start to criticize other people for the things that they may or may not do for you, right? Learn to understand that sometimes, we judge them based on what we would do, or we project our own fears or insecurities or our own kind of flaws onto them, and just realize that that's not the best way to go about it. I'm not saying that, sometimes people don't do things out of malice or anything. No, not at all. But I feel like, there'd be more evidence there to support it. Whereas, again, oftentimes, but sometimes people just do things, like I said, because they don't know any better. And that's another thing. You can always talk to that person and everything, kind of get to the bottom of it. Just be careful, don't be overwhelming and everything, again, because if it's something where, like, any little thing, any little change or anything that they might do, and you want to get to, like, the bottom of it and realize, oh, well, why does this happen and everything? Again, sometimes learn to let go. Learn to let go of those, preconceived ideals or whatever it may be, and allow yourself to change a little bit, to see where it goes. If you start noticing bad patterns and everything, then sure, like, genuinely bad patterns, for that one you have to use a little bit more of your gut, I guess, to try and figure out, right? And in that case, yeah, maybe something is bad, again, I'm not saying lower your standards, but I'm just saying, just be careful with the way that you kind of critique people and what they do, sometimes, like I said, they just don't know any better, and that's that. And you can't be so harsh on them, because, again, just because you do it doesn't mean that they wouldn't if they knew better, or that they can't, or that even your way is the best way. Maybe their way is the best way. Maybe you're doing too much. Maybe you're not doing enough, or I don't know. There's, like, so many ways to interpret it, right? So just be careful about that. So, again, learn to let go about certain thoughts that you might have, certain ideas or ideals, because sometimes, they might be outdated per se, that you might need to change them a little bit to fit where you are now. And if you decide, hey, well, you know what, I think that my ideals and everything are perfect, and I do not want to change them and everything, I think that's fine too. Just saying, understand that, maybe that not everything might work out the way that you hope for it, right? But regardless, so I hope that things work out for everybody and anybody. But yeah, I think those are my 2 cents for today. Learning to let go. It's hard, and I know that maybe sometimes I don't have the best way to convey it with words. But like I said, just these videos, I feel like sometimes it helps me. It's kind of like journaling in a way. I think it kind of helps me get my thoughts out, where I can hopefully, little by little, maybe become more coherent, better, more well-versed in everything. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, if I were to recommend anything today, let's see, what would be a good song to recommend? Let's go with... I can't think of too many right now, but one that I do like, and I think one that I always go to, I'm going to go with Passionfruit by Drake. Absolute banger, absolute great song. I think it's one of those songs that, my life can be falling apart, I'll play it, and it's vibes, you know what I'm saying? So, it's a great song, and actually, I might even try right now to record this in Spanish. I'm gonna give it a shot. Why not? But regardless, yeah, thank you for listening. And again, take everything that I say with a grain of salt. It's kind of like I said, part of it is like me trying to help people, but at the same time, and with anything that you hear, always try to like process it, try to understand it, and then try to apply it if you think it's worth applying, and apply it in your own way. Don't just listen to people and do what they say works for them, because what works for one person might not work for the other, So just be careful about that with anything that you hear. But yeah, thank you. Have a good one.